You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
He's got it! Oh, baby!
Every week, Travis Currah.
That's Grey Cup me, which is a different person.
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Oh, nearly intercepted, and it's over!
Ready, set, hunt!
I don't know what led you to this point in your life, but thanks for listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast. It's Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty.
What led us to actually wanting to do this in the first place? Like, I think that's more the issue.
Man, I'm still adjusting. It takes me about 2 weeks to get back to normal after having a long weekend or going camping or whatever. And then I'm gone again. So I'm really not ever.
On Saturday, it'll be 16 weeks that I haven't worked. I'm going back. Like, you want to talk about an adjustment period?
That's going to be a struggle.
Yeah. And then still do this on the side.
Are you still are you prepping for it? Like, what's your game plan to get ready?
Hate my life and plan to drink when I get home.
So nothing has changed.
Just wallow. Just
when
wallow
it comes
in
to
it.
Brazilian Ty.
No, I was called out a couple weeks ago on that.
So
they're like, hey, stop bitching about your job if you're not going to do anything to change it. Because all you do is you come home and get blackout drunk and complain to us. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what guys do, isn't it?
just stuff it down.
Yeah. Then it becomes an ulcer.
So you ruined your friend's week? Like their dog's teeth? Like, what happened here?
So went over there to drop off bottles.
Yeah.
Because my niece, she takes my bottles. That's her job. And then she has money to spend.
Nice.
She'll be 6 in August.
Look at that. Good Uncle Drunkle Ty.
There it is. Drunkle. Yeah. These are the ones that call me Drunkle. And, but she wasn't there. It was just the youngest. So she was having a nap. Amber left. So it was just me and Austin and his brother Taylor, like my old roommate. We're out hanging out in the backyard and I'm throwing the ball for the dogs because Taylor brought over his dog. Well, I throw one and it bounces and it goes up and it's right in between them. And both mouths are open.
Oh.
And it was salt. And they're both, well, one's a lab, one's a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. And Carl, the lab, his head is a cinder block. So he's bleeding like here. And then the bleeding kind of stops and he's trying to it looked like a dog trying to claw a chicken bone out of his mouth.
Yeah.
So it's like stuck in his throat. And then we eventually get him to lay down and we hold him down and we look and his one tooth next to his bottom canine tooth is like pushed backwards and the root is showing.
Ooh.
So he's going to the dentist tomorrow.
Wow.
So, but Austin's like, I bet you I could just pull this. I'm like, oh.
I know it's the dog, but man, I'm cringing at the thought of this.
I felt so bad.
Blame Brazilian Ty.
They're like, it's whatever. It's a freak accident. And then Avery came home and she just laid into me about it. She's like, oh, good job. And I'm like, look, they'll be fine. She's like, no, you ruined their day. Because both dogs wanted nothing to do with each other after that. They were just they were hurt. Like they probably both had concussions. And it's going to be $1,000 minimum.
Minimum. You
well,
breathe.
To pull that tooth, they're gonna have to put them under.
Man, you breathe in the vet's office, and that's $1,000.
And
so
I've been in that vet's house. Nothing they do is cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who it is. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Week 5 in the CFL starts on Thursday, where the Rough Riders are favorites by a touchdown over the Edmonton Elks. The over-under set at 43.5 here. The Riders coming into this game banged up. Yeah, they are the favorites, but they're hurt, and it started against that game in Calgary before the bye. There's a lot of shuffling on the offensive line right now. A lot of it, I guess, did stem from that game, but a lot of other things going on as well. There's some illness going in there, but either way, shuffling on the O-line, that's never a good sign, but they they survived against Calgary. Now, can they survive against Edmonton?
Anybody can. There's 18 guys on the injury report for the Riders right now.
What is it in Saskatchewan? It's always seems to be something when it comes to injuries, man.
Well, I mean, the healthcare system is in shambles.
Touchdown Jake now on the 6-game injured list for Saskatchewan, and Mitchell Picton is set to start there. So, I mean, are we going to see more Sean Bain? Kind of an under-the-radar signing, I think, for the Riders, coming over from Calgary, but made a big play against the Stamps, had that 60-yard game. Clearly, he's a fast guy, and he might be having a nice season with Trevor Harris slinging him the ball the rest of the way.
And with injuries comes opportunities for guys like that. Kind of buried a little bit in Calgary when he was there, so you didn't get to see the full potential. I mean, you look at Calgary's receivers throughout the year, it plug and play, but they always had guys. Kind of like a little bit of a breakout chance for him to show what he's got, and he's taken full advantage of it. And I mean, if everybody gets healthy, that receiving core can be really good, and we've yet to see it. But I mean, like Mitchell Picton drawing in, he's had good success against Edmonton in his career so far. So it's a loss, but if he can fill in that spot, I think they'll be just fine. And is Edmonton scaring anybody right now?
They are not.
Other than their fan base.
They have talented players. There's no doubt about it. But to play together is a whole nother question.
25 players, 25 cabs? Boston Red Sox style?
Jaden Dahlke making his return at free safety for Saskatchewan. So Edmonton receivers will need to watch out for him.
And Milligan was full practice as well in that defensive secondary for the Riders. So that's pretty big too.
Good news for the Saskatchewan secondary. The Elks have signed offensive lineman Brett Boyko, who was drafted in 2015. He ended up spending some time around the NFL, and then he was recently with the Orlando Guardians of the XFL this year. So he has been playing. He did kind of struggle, I thought, when he came back to the CFL. We'll see. I mean, but at least they're trying to make some changes on the offensive line in Edmonton, because they're going to have their hands full this week. And it seems like every week as defensive lines are pinning their ears back.
Why wouldn't you? Like, it just seems like, I don't want to say it's easy, because it is still professional football, but when it comes to game planning, that's what you're going to have to do against this team, because until they can stop it, you just keep doing it. Same thing in hockey, same thing in base. Like, until somebody can stop you, like, why would you stop doing it yourself?
Linebacker Jordan Reeves signed by Edmonton as well, and it does appear that Taylor Cornelius was taking the first team reps at practice for the Elks, so he's set to start Thursday in Regina.
That's the best Reeves signing of the week for sure.
Cornelius,
no, you're walking away.
Yeah, I'm walking away.
Okay, fair enough.
Cornelius, I remember last September in Saskatchewan, he had that big game where we had 115 rushing yards or something like that. As a Rough Rider fan myself, it was one of the most frustrating losses of the season after Mark Leggio.
What was worse, that or the year Hamilton went 1-17?
Oh, well, that wasn't surprising.
But no, not in the least.
Letting Taylor Cornelius run for that long, and Mark Leggio, who struggled in Winnipeg last year, kicks a 55-yarder on Labor Day. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Anyway, that was last year. This is this year. I mean, does taking a game off give Taylor Cornelius any sort of confidence going into this game? I'm not so sure,
How
man.
can it? Yeah, it's great he gets back with the ones, but I think he's got to know, like, how long is this leash? It can't, like, he's already been pulled and then replaced and then didn't get to start the next game. Like, if he throws 2 picks here in the first quarter, or a pick, and they're going 2 and out and the offensive is ineffective, I don't know how that gives him any confidence. Like he has to play a perfect game, or else Jones is going to have a quick hook. I feel
Edmonton has
it is
given up.
professional football. Like there is pressure, but this is an unnecessary pressure.
Edmonton has given up 656 rushing yards through 4 games, 164 rush yards a game. That is 51 yards higher than the next team per game.
Isn't Jones a defensive guru?
Teams are rushing on Edmonton, 115 rushing attempts against. The next closest team is Hamilton at 69.
Nice.
And Edmonton giving up 5.7 yards a carry. Obviously, this
Jamal
seems
Morrow
like
is
a
in our
Jamal
lineup.
Morrow game.
But it could spell between him and Frankie Hickson too. Like keep them healthy and hope for the best, because there's a chance they could both put up 80, 90 yards.
I was just going to say, which obviously means that
Frankie
Jamal
Hickson's
Morrow is going to get 4 carries for
yeah.
19 yards.
And Frankie's going to get 20 for 130. And 2 touchdowns.
The Riders actually haven't won a home game since last summer as well. It was early in the year. They had a win against an East Division opponent. Was it the Ottawa game? It might have been the last time that the Riders have won at home. Like, I know it's nothing compared to the Elks and their home woes, but Saskatchewan hasn't really been a dominant force in the friendly confines of Mosaic Stadium either.
No, it's basically Winnipeg West when it comes to home field advantage.
Right.
I don't know what and I think a lot of it is the outside noise that you get in Regina. They know that, home games are, well, and every team knows that home games are the most, like, you got to win at home and go 500 on the road and you'll be fine, right? But I just think the amount of pressure that goes into those home games in Regina, I think that gets to guys. And like some guys thrive under it. Some guys love that and they want to be part of that. But I think that's a reason why a lot of guys won't come to Saskatchewan. Like it's a tough place to play. You see it in the NHL where Canadians don't want to play in Canada. Like in the NFL, there's some markets you don't want to go to because of the pressure surrounding it. Like when you're the only game in town, it's pretty tough to keep up appearances that everything is fine when you're losing games at home and saying that, oh, we don't read that, we don't listen to the outside noise. It's impossible not to. It's impossible not to in Regina.
How are the Elks going to get Kevin Brown going? I was expecting a big season from him following his debut last year in Edmonton, but it's again, when the run blocking is poor and he's had some
and you're down
issues,
2 scores all the time,
fumbling as well.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Do you use him as more of a passing back?
He's got the ability for it.
That's what I mean, to try to get it, not necessarily like not worrying about the fumbles, but to get him away from the offensive line a little bit, where guys are crashing down and breaking up the pocket and breaking up those run plays on that offensive line quite easily. Kind of stretch out the defense a little bit and get them involved that way, and eventually you can start running it again. But I mean, against the interior of this Riders defense, I don't know if it's the one where you want to start running between the tackles.
They've sort of given Shannon Brooks more carries here and there. I kind of wonder if he's going to start squeaking his way up the depth chart and gaining more abilities. I know, now my initial fantasy lineup, I had him too. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of going back and forth. Just the way things are going, quarterbacks are getting more expensive. Everything's getting more expensive. So you need those cheap guys.
What is this, Superstore?
And the inflation on the fantasy game is just off the charts, man.
It's unaffordable. Can't live like this. How am I supposed to live, laugh, love in these conditions?
How do I get that fantasy rebate check in my account?
I think I'm definitely not making enough, so I should get one.
But maybe a guy like Shannon Brooks starts to get more carries. Obviously, it's a huge Hail Mary if you got him in there, but it'll pay off if he gets.
That's all Edmonton's got left.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
It's now you're just looking for something, anything, a change of, like, not necessarily a change of scenery, but just maybe a different guy here, and you key on him and get him going, and that's like we saw it with Eugene Lewis getting 10 targets in a game. Well, yeah, it's Eugene Lewis, but still, you want to get somebody going, and giving Kevin Brown 5 carries doesn't get him going.
Last year, Dylan Mitchell makes his debut, and he starts to have a very nice rest of the season. I kind of wonder if we're going to see that with Maurice French, who makes his debut last week, has a nice game, and then maybe he earns his way into the lineup the rest of the way, and is kind of that under the radar guy for the Edmonton Elks. He's definitely got the opportunity now to shine a little bit. It feels like it's been a while since the Riders have been a favorite this heavily going into a game, which
it feels like it's low. Like it feels like 7 isn't enough. But then you remember it's the Riders. And you remember it's the Riders, and they're going to lose by 3.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen, especially with the struggles on the O-line.
I'm going to be eating my feelings tomorrow at about 8 o'clock, aren't I?
And we know the way Trevor Harris has started the season, he looks like a guy that's just handling the role in Saskatchewan well. The offensive coordinator, Kelly Jeffries, is done a great job so far getting the running game involved, and Harris getting every receiver involved, whether it's Tevin Jones or Samuel Emilus, Sean Bain. Maybe Picton gets involved this week, and now that he's in the starting lineup, he's able to spread that ball around. We've seen that in his CFL career up to this point, so not the biggest surprise, but Edmonton needs to make him feel the heat early and often if they want to have a chance here.
And Edmonton is completely capable of doing that with that front.
They are.
But at the same time, you're going to blitz Trevor Harris.
Yep.
Veteran guy, he gets the ball out quick. He's going to find somebody.
Yeah, it's just Edmonton. Can they limit their turnovers and their mistakes as best as possible and somehow stay on the field? Like last week, half of their drives or more are 2 plays and done.
Yeah,
your defense.
Yeah, it's not even the turnovers that you're worried about if you're Edmonton. Like, yeah, ill-timed fumbles and stuff like that. Those happen to every team. In all reality, we've seen it, especially early in the season. But yeah, Edmonton has to sustain drives. You can't have a 40-second 2-play, 2 and out, and then the other team goes 70 yards in 4 minutes and puts up 7, and then you punt again. Like it's just been an exercise in futility on the offensive side of the ball for Edmonton, and then their defense is just hung out to dry because they're out there so much.
This one feels like a pretty strong spread. The Bombers 8-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders at home, IG Field, Friday night football.
The sports books have no faith in Jake Maier.
Yeah, and you remember Jake Maier coming in last year, and he had that nice streak of 300-yard games, and one of those was
one of them
against Winnipeg, right?
I think he only won one of those games though out of 4, didn't he?
Yeah. A lot of times,
which is hilarious.
300 yards is kind of like in the CFL. You should be getting that.
Yeah, like, that's your 3,000 strikeouts. That's 50 goals, or not 3,000 strikeouts. Sorry, like 200 innings, 50 goals. Stuff like that. And yeah, it's just. Usually if you get 300 yards out of your quarterback and with the running backs they have, there's no reason they should be losing football games. But yeah, here we are.
Winnipeg has given up 6. This is crazy. Winnipeg's given up 6 passing TDs on the year. Toronto has given up the most in 7. Well, also in one game they had 6 interceptions. So I can't figure that out.
What's that ratio at?
And I guess they gave up a couple to Edmonton, so figure that out.
Garbage time. Those don't count.
One of the biggest pieces of news in Calgary this week is Markin Michel is back, and there's a chance that he's going to be playing in Winnipeg.
That's wild.
They have had their depth on receiver tested, and they are down to some pretty young and inexperienced players on there. Not saying they're not talented, but inexperienced. And Michel hasn't played with the Stamps since 2018. He has since played in the NFL, kind of bouncing around a little bit. He got into 2 games, but now making his return to the CFL with the Stampeders, and it does look like Reggie Bagleton will make his return to the lineup Friday night in Winnipeg. Those will be much welcome additions to Jake Maier and the Stamps offense.
And even if Mark and Michelle doesn't get in this week, if he's healthy, he's gonna be in there every week. I don't think somebody's gonna come in and take his job. He's so talented. He knows this offense. Yeah, it's been a while. It won't take him long to get reacclimated. And having Reggie Bagleton back, I don't know how many times I've texted you. Reggie Bagleton is so good. Just the little things. And
he's so physical, and he blocks too.
Right, he does everything well. He is Hines Ward, but bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So of course, I hate to like him, but just because he's a Stamp. But if him and Mark and Michelle are in the lineup, and you still have a guy like Luther Huckanavanu,
and it looks like he might miss this week, actually.
Trey Adams, Dukes, Colton Hunchak, those guys to take those third and those secondary routes and set stuff up. That just, they become really hard to stop, really hard. And if Reggie 1-on-1, that you have to throw that ball to him.
It's big getting Michelle back now that Malik Henry is out for a significant period of time for the Stampeders. Is this Dedrick Mills' first time playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
From what I can find, what's on my stat sheet, it's probably more dependable than what we have, because we have nothing.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that he's one of those guys.
He might have returns and stuff.
Right.
But that doesn't count. So when a guy only has returns, I'm still counting as a game played, but he just hasn't been involved in the offense, is what it is. So he could have still been in the game.
I think the Stamps are gonna want to. I don't know if they want to engage in a shootout with the Bombers. Although the last couple of weeks they've slowed down compared to the first couple of weeks of the season. But
when you run the same playbook for 4 years, people start to figure it out.
They just need
still can't stop it, but you can slow it down.
They need a way to keep Dedrick Mills involved. This guy runs angry, and I'm starting to think he's one of those guys that is going to have success no matter who he plays against. Just don't fall behind the Bombers. Keep him involved, and that'll be a key for the Stampeders.
And it seems like the physicality is what gets him going. He likes
it.
He wants to get hit. He wants to run over a couple guys, get that. He's like, okay, that's what it's like to be hit. Let's go. And all of a sudden, he's running over guys, going for those extra yards, getting first downs. He can catch a little bit coming out of the backfield. This is a guy that he has to be involved in your game plan. And it just seems like so many teams right now are abandoning the run still. We talk about it every couple weeks where, you only got 5 carries, you only got 6 carries. And they kind of fall behind. But if you're only down by a touchdown, it's not that big a deal. Feed him the rock. That's the guy that can get 100, 120 yards a game, you can extend drives for you. Yeah. Are you going to have some 2-and-outs? Yeah, probably. Are you going to have some second and longs? Yep. But if you just abandon it and you go back to him in the third quarter, he's basically cold. So just feed him the rock, let him run angry. Let him get hit. Let him start hitting guys, and I think it's going to pay off.
The Stamps don't want to fall to 1-3 off the season, and historically, what has happened in Calgary is they've done very well off the bye. So maybe they've been able to use that time to get healthy a little bit.
It was also with Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yeah. What are we going to see here from Jake Maier, the offense, and the Calgary Stampeders? It does appear, like we said, that Reggie Bagleton could be returning, and Titus Wall returning to the Stampeders secondary, which will be a big addition to that secondary for the Stamps. As far as the Bombers go, Adam Bighill was questionable all last week. He's questionable again this week. That'll be big for their run defense. Looks like he's going to be out there. Otherwise, the Bombers are looking relatively healthy at this point of the season, and that's bodes well for them heading into this one on Friday night.
Jeffcoat was banged up for the last couple of weeks, played last week, seemed fine. So you get him and Willie Jefferson, those bookends.
Dembski back playing.
Dembski back. You mentioned Adam Baker. There was times where on short yardage, he's usually the one diving over, and he wasn't doing that. So that raised a bit of a red flag for me where he wasn't doing what he always does. But I think an 80% Adam Bighill is still pretty damn good.
Yeah. I would take an 80% Adam Bighill on my team.
I would take 80% of anything right now to feel like my body is in shambles after slow pitch again.
Maybe we see a heavy dose of. We've seen it the last few weeks. Brady Oliveira is just. Last year when he got the job, it was kind of a slow start, and as the season went on,
and they were also splitting between him and Johnny Augustine. It was like a little bit of a audition between the two, and Oliveira is just so much more physical. It was the no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think with the continuity between these two teams, especially in the coaching staffs, this is always a good game between Winnipeg and Calgary. And all last year, I know that the Stampeders lost those matchups again, 3 of them against the Bombers. But how close were they? There was the Kamar Jordan bounce off his arm in the end zone.
I lost so much money on that. I was hoping you weren't going to bring it up. I lost 150 on that one.
Well, like, what an end to that game.
I was chasing. That's the problem.
Last year between the Stamps and the Bombers, and they actually ended up losing 35-28 a couple weeks later, and then they lost 31-29 last year. So the point differential
you go 0-3 and lose by a total like 13 points.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
So Dave Dickinson is going to have his team prepared as best as he can going into Winnipeg on Friday night. But you better believe that the Bombers are going to be ready for a West Division showdown as well.
The one thing we forgot in that Edmonton game, Jake Serezna this week got fined.
Well, I was going to mention it in Ottawa, the next game anyway.
But, but we had talked about Edmonton. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go myself.
The Ticats are 2-point favorites over the Ottawa RedBlacks here. Basically a pick 'em, right?
Yeah.
Let's just start with Ottawa there. It does appear that Jeremiah Masoli is set to make his season debut, but first, Tyree Adams is going to miss the rest of the season with an ACL injury. So tough after he has that big win against Edmonton, ending that losing streak for Ottawa. And it does appear that the injury did happen on a low hit from Jake Serezna of Edmonton, and he's been fined the maximum amount, but Tyree Adams is out the rest of the year. That's tough.
And it sucks because it's Ottawa again. It's another low hit. I don't think, I wouldn't color Serezna as a dirty player.
No.
No hit, yeah, he's probably hit guys low in the past, but the game is so fast. You're just trying to grab onto a guy. I get it. Sucks. Great game for Tyree. He's out for the year. They didn't say it's torn or anything. It just says injury, so it could just be a sprain, but it's just safer to take him out. As long as Masoli can stay healthy. Masoli coming back, this team, they could go on a bit of a run.
They could. If they can ride that momentum off of last week, that'd be big. Now, Hamilton coming off the bye, are they going to look any different? Are they going to be fired up home to Ottawa here? And Mazzoli's definitely going to be fired up coming back to Tim Hortons Field, right?
I think so. It'd be a bit of a revenge, not revenge, but kind of a, an FU game a little bit. And now, you look at Hamilton, they brought in Bolivia Mitchell, but they had to pick between Dane and Jeremiah and let Jeremiah go, and then they end up trading Dane anyway, and they bring in Bo Levi Mitchell, and they haven't had a win yet, and it's just one of those things where if Ottawa beats them, it's just kind of a kick in the nuts, right? It's just I don't even know, a revenge game isn't the right way to put it, just a big kind of an F. To show him what you got, and if he stays healthy, this team can go on a run and challenge for a playoff spot.
It's pretty wild that actually Jeremiah Masoli got hurt last year in Saskatchewan 1 week before he was set to make his return to Tim Hortons Field. So it never happened. And now we're getting it. So this is...
It's not the return we want, though.
That's true.
We know the return we all want, but the schedule, I never thought baseball would have a better schedule than a 9-team league, but here we are.
Bo to Calgary, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate that that won't be happening. So Masoli, all of a sudden the pressure is on a little bit more, not only to perform but to stay healthy too.
Yeah, stay healthy and keep this momentum going. Like,
yeah,
you finally get that home win. Yeah, Tyree gets hurt, but Masoli's coming back. Like, I don't know how. Like, there is definitely pressure in Ottawa because of the futility of the last couple of years. And Masoli was supposed to come in and kind of turn that around, and he gets hurt, and that all gets screwed over last year. But yeah, like if stuff goes if everything goes horribly wrong in this game, like I'm not saying you got to trade Masoli, but it's just like, are we going to have to figure something out at the end of the season, what we're doing now? Because, how long can you go 4-14 or 5-13 before, like, I don't want to say the franchise folds, but like till everything is blown up, because it's been, they have a losing record as a franchise since they come back. They got one Grey Cup win, and then the Grey Cup appearances, but it's like something has to give. And if Masoli can't turn around, I don't know what they do.
It's kind of interesting because when you get a win, I always feel a temptation to be like, well, we're changing everything up again. So now that changes the
dynamic.
I guess it was against Edmonton, but that changes the chemistry a little bit, right? But obviously Masoli's the guy you want behind center, and he's the guy that brought so much hope last year before the rough start to the year. But I mean, look at the schedule, man. They started last year against Winnipeg twice. They lost by a combined 9 points in those two games, and then they played the Nathan Rourke BC Lions and lost by 3, and then Masoli got hurt. So
they weren't far off.
No, they weren't. Now,
same time, moral victories don't get you much.
There's going to be the change at quarterback for Ottawa. Could be a change at running back as well. Demontre Tuggle had a nice game last week, and now Devontae Williams has been practicing in full. Will he get his running back job back as well? That'll be a situation to watch, especially if you're building a fantasy lineup. I was happy to have Tuggle's 20 plus points in my lineup last week. Don't know if he's going to be getting that same opportunity against Hamilton here.
I don't know. Like, you mentioned continuity and not wanting to switch stuff up. Like,
I know.
Do you let Tuggle keep going? Like, you ride the hot hand until he can't anymore? I don't know. Like, I'd
be tempted to do that.
I do it all the time on my franchises on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not wrecking this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The RedBlacks have also acquired linebacker Kevin Francis from the Edmonton Elks. He did sign with Edmonton back during free agency, felt disrespected, demanded a trade. Now it's finally happened.
Seems like a recurring theme.
Yeah, it does.
Right now,
a bit of a special teams ace, and he'll be a big addition on the coverage team for Bob Dice and the RedBlacks now. But remember when Derek Dennis demanded a trade from Edmonton? That was the Brock Sunderland regime, and he was kind of buried on the roster, on the suspended list, whatever it was. At least Chris Jones dealt him. Yeah,
but I mean, if a guy can play for you, absolutely, then you go make that deal. But do you want to do anything for that franchise right now? If you're another, I was like, we don't want Edmonton to figure this out.
Jalen Acklin has only played one game against his former team, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and it ended up being a nice one, Ty.
Yeah, 23.8 points. I don't know if that's any good.
Yeah, so he's going to want to get going. I know he had 2 catches, 49 yards last week, but having Masoli back throwing him the ball, they go back to their Hamilton days together. It'll be nice to have them both full strength this week at Tim Hortons Field. Familiar setting for those two guys.
Yeah, and you talk about familiarity just from continuity with Winnipeg and Calgary. Well, these guys have been together for more than just the 2 seasons in Ottawa. So there is that opportunity where if they can get going and they both stay healthy, that Ackland's season can turn around. I mean, he's had what, 4 quarterbacks or 5 quarterbacks in the last season and a bit. So, they can get back on the same page. They could do some damage for sure.
The Tiger Cats also come into this game desperate, 0-3, hosting the Grey Cup. They won free agency,
who they signed,
but thankfully, Grey Cups are not handed out in February. They have signed Kai Loxley, the former Edmonton Elk quarterback / receiver.
Better not have any short yardage.
He might not be very happy with that. But he is now a Tiger Cat. And let's see here. James Butler was so involved in the Ticats offense.
And then they went back to their old ways.
And they had success with that. And I realized that they had a close loss to Winnipeg. Well, they lost by 11 to Winnipeg to start the year.
We're calling that a close loss?
Actually, they weren't close losses. They lost by 18 to Toronto, and then they lost by, it just gets worse. They lost by 26 to Montreal. So it got progressively worse in the first 3 games of the year.
And I have it on good authority, known as Twitter, that Ticat fans aren't big fans of Tommy Condell. This might be breaking news to people.
Good authority.
But
no, the new rate limits on Twitter. What are you only allowed to read 600 tweets a game? You could just read tweets on Tommy Condell and reach your limit.
Couldn't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You couldn't read them all.
Way past Elon's limit, unless you pay more for Twitter. But who's going to pay for Twitter?
Yeah, I already pay for Disney Plus, which now has Home Improvement on it. No, I don't pay for Disney. I mean, yeah, I pay for Disney Plus. Thank you, Andrew. I already pay for enough crap. I don't need to pay $8 for Twitter just to be pissed off for 23 and a half hours a day.
Now, to start the year, Duke Williams has been good for the Ticats. Has he had 2 100-yard games here to start the year? That's the problem. You can't look up the individual game stats right now.
Oh, can't you though?
Oh, did they fix that?
No, but I have a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet.
Okay. Oh,
back-to-back 102 yards.
Nice.
Back-to-back games with 9 and 10 targets.
So that is big. He's going to be someone to watch for the Ottawa RedBlacks. And then remind me, Ty, Tim White, didn't he have 140 some yards in his last time out for the Ticats? The Schultz was just
7 catches on 12 targets, 143 yards, 44 yards after the catch, 21.3 fantasy points with a 58.3% catch percentage.
Man, my memory is actually okay when it comes to football.
You haven't taken a lot of head blows.
I'm actually, my head is like erasing some useful information and filling it with football stuff.
Like, I started thinking the other day about all the song lyrics I know. Like, I probably could have taken calculus and pushed that out and had a way better job. Maybe went to university, but no, I know all the words so we didn't start the fire instead.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's some good
I do love Billy Joel. I do love Billy Joel.
Billy Joel's residency coming to an end at Madison Square Garden next July.
Yeah, it's full. Really need to get a passport.
Incredible, though.
It's wild.
A residency at the world's most famous arena. That is, I think, an incredible achievement in music. I don't know how we got from Duke Williams to Tim White to Billy Joel, but here we are, Brazilian Ty. What? Here we are.
How do we get to Kevin Bacon from there? We still got 3 more.
Yeah. Oh, he's somewhere in there. That's for sure.
He's gotta be.
Respect has been given to the Ottawa RedBlacks defense throughout the season, so they're going to be giving Matthew Schultz some fits in this game, but we need to see more from the Tiger Cats defense as well. Poor timing with their penalties and missed assignments left and right. There is talent again on the Tiger Cats defense.
It makes me wonder how, like, a guy you don't talk a lot about is Tunde Adeleke. and like when you don't talk about him, it's usually because he's not messing up. And with him being out, I wonder how much that affects that defense.
Right.
Maybe not penalty wise, but just overall, like he's a leader on the field, right? Especially for that secondary. I think that's a tougher loss and a bigger loss than we originally thought it would be.
Yeah, he hasn't practiced. He's got a hamstring issue right now. But I actually think the whole Tiger Cats coaching staff is a little bit on the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at Orlando Steinauer. People are looking at Tommy Condell. And I think people are starting to look at Mark Washington, the defensive coordinator for the Ticats as well. Dylan Wynn hasn't seen the field this year, and I think that's probably
another big one.
That's a big one that if he's able to get onto the field soon, that'll be a big addition to that front for the Ticats that can be ferocious at times, but two desperate teams, I think, playing.
And desperation is either going to breed a really good game or a real sloppy game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You back a cat into the corner, you back a wild animal into a corner. Well, they're either just going to curl up in a ball or they're going to attack. And I think if these teams they make it so desperate, they just start slinging the ball around, and both these defenses have the weapons on the back end to get turnovers and create turnovers. I would rather be like a fundamentally sound, 24-21 game and a good football game than it be what we saw on Monday night.
That was fun too.
It was fun, but I didn't have Toronto's defense either.
Yeah.
I had them in my original lineup and I took them out.
Oh, wow. Of course.
Yeah.
The Montreal Alouettes go to Vancouver for the first time since 2019, Ty. They are 7.5 point underdogs.
Thought we were done talking about the schedule.
Now, look, some people are probably writing off Vernon Adams Jr. after a rough performance in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
But come on.
Derek Taylor did have a good point.
Well, what was his point?
Well, now you see why he's the sixth best quarterback in the league.
Well,
like it's not that bad, but it's not as good as what we've seen. It's somewhere in the middle. There's got to be an average. Like it's not a 6-pick game, but it's also not him, gunslinging and putting up 35 points a night and 300 yards. It's somewhere in between those.
But you're telling me this Sunday against the Montreal Alouettes.
Sunday.
His old team that, and I realize that there's been some changes in the coaching staff, although I do think Khari Jones really believed in Vernon Adams Jr. when he was the head coach in Montreal. Mm-hmm. But of course, Danny Machocha coming in, I guess, wanted his guy, and VA and Trevor Harris end up leaving, and Cody Fajardo, but here anyway. I don't think things were amicable when Vernon Adams Jr. was traded last year.
Seemed like a pretty ugly divorce, and it's just kind of the kid sitting in the corner wondering if it's his fault.
I think we see a motivated
Cody Fajardo.
We see motivated Vernon Adams Jr. Sunday.
I think so.
Lions.
I think he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder, something to prove. Being like, yeah, maybe you should have kept me and we could have made a run. But I think honestly, they're a lot better off in BC just with the weapons they have right now.
Well, that being said, maybe we joke about Cody Fajardo. He's been good to start the year in
O-line a little bit better, but it's not even the offensive weapons. Like, look at what he had in Saskatchewan.
I think people at the beginning of the year would look at the offense in Montreal and say, well, he doesn't have much to work with. Especially when it comes to CFL experience. I know there's William Stanback there, and Austin Mack has been dynamite. Mack has been dynamite to start the season, so that helps.
They got Jake Hardy, good veteran.
And Keon Julian Grant is really, this might be his breakout year. Mm-hmm. What a great second half he had against Winnipeg last week. And Montreal couldn't finish critical drives in the second half, and that probably ended up being the difference there.
I just needed them to finish one drive and get another field goal. Like I just needed a backdoor cover. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. That's all I needed.
Now, they're going to be tested again against the very strong BC Lions defense, who did as much as they could against Toronto, but when your offense gives the ball away as often as they did, I think that Lions defense is going to be giving Cody Fajardo a little bit of trouble too, especially that defensive line. Matthew Betts, now...
The league leader in sacks.
Yes. Now, is it... There's been a good history of Canadian D linemen in BC. Brent Johnson, Ricky Foley had good years in BC.
Oh, I forgot about Ricky Foley.
Yeah, so there is a great D line happening in BC right now, and Betts looks like an absolute monster.
And like we talk about Willie Jefferson, and he's so big and so rangy, and his wingspan, he can knock down passes, he can do everything from that DN spot. Matthew Betts it's a different way of playing, but it's just as impressive. And it just seems like when he wants to get the quarterback, nobody's getting in his way. Not as big, obviously, and stuff like that, but he finds a way. And we talk about all the time, like the longer you play, the more tricks of the trade you learn, and how to get that little inside move, the rip, swing, like all that stuff. And he's figured it out, and he's becoming a menace. And it's so fun to watch. How many D
linemen in the CFL just last, because it gets smarter, I think.
Yeah. Well, look at the year Charleston Hughes had at 37 years old.
Yeah. All those little tricks that they know how to beat these O linemen.
Yeah.
For BC, they're now.
And you're also not taking huge hits.
Yeah.
As a defensive lineman, so you get a little bit of career longevity that way. You're not getting targeted.
Yeah. BC's offense is going to be tested against Montreal's defense as well. Noah Thorpe has his group together to start the year, and they've been giving teams some trouble as well. Taquan Mizell, man, there was a run he had against Winnipeg. He didn't give him the ball much against the Bombers last week, but he absolutely undressed a couple defenders on the field for the Bombers last week. And I think we could be seeing him more against Montreal coming up on Sunday.
Well, and that can only help to get Vernon Adams Jr. back into his rhythm after throwing 6 picks. I think he not necessarily lean on the run game, but establish it, get that going. Get Montreal thinking twice before they're able to just, sell out pass wise. And if it starts working and he racks up big numbers and he's scoring, then you don't need to go away from it that much. And come the end of the game, the defense is going to be so worn out. It's going to be easier to run the clock out. Going to be easier to hold on to the ball, sustain drives, and all that stuff. It snowballs if you can get it established and it works.
We only have a practice report so far from Montreal. Armando Sewell and William Stanback limited or didn't practice due to an illness, but Deontay Williams missing. Pierre-Olivier Lestage back practicing on the offensive line for the Alouettes. I think any time, even if the Lions don't win, those receivers that they have give Vernon Adams a chance on any play to make a big play, especially with Dominic Rhymes there. And I know in his fantasy career struggled against Montreal. I wonder if a lot of that was his time with Ottawa and who was throwing him the ball and how was that offense when he was there. And I think he's one of those receivers, you just kind of get the ball in his general vicinity and he'll have a shot at it. And I think,
who is he, Brian Burnham?
But I think Vernon Adams and the Lions maybe took that advice a little too literally last week against Toronto, because
10 targets, 3 catches. 10 targets, 3 catches.
How many picks were 19? Number 19 targets?
Probably 7, even though he only threw 6. You look. So Lucky Whitehead 14.7, Keon Hatcher 11.5, Dom Rhymes 5.2 against Montreal. But their career numbers 12.6, 10.7, and 11.6. Career average when it comes to fantasy wise. So any 3 of those guys right now, and Alex Holland at 10.4 per game, leading the
CFL in catches. Alex Holland.
I don't see all 4 of those guys putting up huge numbers, but if you can find the right 1 or 2 and you want to throw them in your lineup, I don't know if there's there will be a wrong 1 or 2 for sure, just because they don't get picked as part of the game plan as much. But it's safe to say that any 4 of those guys could be the primary guy going into this week.
I'm always partial to Dominic Rhymes just because the way Vernon Adams looks his way in the end zone. It just seems like he is
It's
that
inevitable.
guy.
Death, taxes, and Dom Rhymes in the end zone.
Yeah, a monster.
And Bo Bichette being a terrible defensive shortstop.
Once they are in striking distance of a major, but it's tough to turn down Austin Mack. He's averaging almost 20 points a game in his fantasy career in the CFL, and that's only 3 games deep. So
that is ridiculous.
It has been a great start to his CFL career for him.
I think that might lead active receivers.
Like now in the entire league?
Like overall.
I would want to know Dom Rhymes' numbers to start the year, because
Dom Rhymes at 11.6 career average. Yeah, Austin Mack is number 1 at 19.5. No, like active guys, like career averages. Maurice French, 1 game, 19.4. Dalton Schoen, 15.8 points per game.
That's his average?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
I think there are great storylines and great intrigue going into these week 5 games, starting Thursday in Regina and ending Sunday in Vancouver. What is your team looking like to start, or at this point of the week? At this point, because
it's going to change for sure. Trevor Harris, Jamal Morrow, Tuggle, dependent. Rhymes, Hatcher, Shannon Brooks, he was 2.5, and the Riders defense.
So I went with Vernon Adams Jr. as my quarterback. Now, suddenly he's a lot cheaper than the top tier guys. They're all $15K. Vernon Adams Jr. was $15K, but the 6 interceptions brought him back.
For what? Like 14.5?
12.5. Jamal Morrow. Jamal Morrow is my number 1 RB. Devontae Williams, my number 2 RB. Samuel Emelis of the Riders. Dom Rhymes. I've made him. I made
him my captain.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that. See what happens. And I've actually my Hail Mary, a half court 3-point shot, is Bryson John of the Calgary Stampeders making his first. It looks like first career start against the Bombers. Look, I know it's a Hail Mary, but it's something.
You got your beads?
I'm selling my soul. And I do have the Rider defense against Taylor Cornelius.
To sale, everything about me must go. Say my sense of dignity for $5.
Which means Taylor Cornelius will throw for 315 yards and rush for another 42.
Shut your whore mouth. I had like 60 points this week. This game.
Wow, I had
I hate
over
it 100. So much.
I was triple digits.
I hate it. It's like golf. I hate it so much.
But if you have a good week, Ty finishes 1 overall. Oh, this is awesome.
The best. Yeah. Can't wait to come back tomorrow.
Who are you picking to win the games, man?
Riders, Bombers, RedBlacks, Lions.
Riders, Bombers, RedBlacks, Lions. So I got Riders, Bombers, Lions. Holy crap. I'll just copy you. RedBlacks.
That worked out well last week.
I've been terrible in pick'em. Okay,
remember when I was so good last year? And I felt like I couldn't miss.
What's going on?
Well, they changed the game.
It's the old Dutch sponsorship, isn't it?
Yeah, it throws me off.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. You can support us on Patreon to get that episode earlier than anybody else, and you can like and comment on YouTube as well. Week 5 is here. Brazilian Ty, when are you going back to work here? Monday?
Yeah, my first day at work will be Monday, so I leave Saturday.
Leaving Saturday.
So I'm going to try to make it to Prince George.
Okay.
If not, it'll have to be McBride, and then from there get to camp Sunday. Can't check in till 3 because they run it like a freaking hotel. Stupid. And then unpack, get set up, and game starts at 5:00 Sunday night.
Yep.
So it'll be 4:00 for me. So I'll be in a mad dash to get everything going so I can watch that, and then we can record.
You might as well just go from PG to Vancouver, go to the game, and then drive home.
You can drive back to camp.
Yeah.
That sounds awful. We had talked about it because our boss wants to bid on a job in Vancouver. I'm like, well, that just means we're getting Lions season tickets, doesn't it, Tim? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, oh, God.
Well,
can we write them off? Can we expense them?
Safe travels to work, pal, and we'll talk to you Sunday night after that Sunday nighter between the Lions and
I will be
Alouettes.
disheveled. As all hell, I'm sure.
2 and Out podcast. Travis Currah, Brazilian Ty. We will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.